Hey, welcome back to the Confidad podcast. I'm your host, Dan Tinquist. So glad to have you back with us today. If you're listening along day by day, week by week, you'll notice there was a little bit of a gap in releasing episodes. And I wrestled with this on how to do it, whether I record a bunch ahead of time before I go on a family vacation or just don't when I'm on vacation. And I went with the latter. I decided if I'm going to teach people how to spend time with their kids well, how to build in rhythms of rest and work in their lives, and be able to go on adventures and build connection and take risks together and serve as a family, I have to live what I'm teaching. So thanks for the grace to be able to take a break, go be with my family. We spent 8 days down in South Carolina, met some dear friends of ours, and spent 7 days hanging out in Charleston on the beach, going to a deserted island and hiking 8+ miles. And it was fantastic. And I'm stoked to be back with you as we continue season 2 of the Confidad podcast. So we'll start this episode like we have every single one of them for season 2 with our fatherhood mindset. Say it out loud with me. I'm the only one who can fulfill the father role that I have, so I choose to do it well. I get to show up well for my kids. Imperfection is reality. Ownership is a choice. Today is brand new, and so is tomorrow. I am wholly loved, so I will love wholly. In today's equipping section, I want to help you come to a better understanding of how you rest. And when I say how you rest, what I don't mean is what are you not doing that you rest? In fact, I'm actually wanting you to ask the question, what are you doing that's the most restful thing to you, the most re-energizing, the most reinvigorating, right? We all work and we all rest. And I think a lot of us struggle with what we might want to try call a work-life balance, which I think is bogus. Honestly, I don't think there's such a thing as balance, because once you start doing too much work over here, you're going to try and rest too much over here, and it's going to go out of balance. And so I would rather say rhythm. Some seasons of life, we have more work and less rest. And some seasons of life, we have more rest and less work. And those rhythms just can happen by default. And usually if that happens, we're going to be either on one spectrum or the other, resting too much, not working enough, or working too much and not resting enough. For you, I'm assuming it's probably on the latter, the working too much and not resting enough. In fact, I had a dad tell me a story from one of his kids that when they were on vacation, the kid said, "Dad, I love being around you on vacation. When does vacation dad come home?" Whoa, it hit him, because he understood that the experience his kids were having with him on vacation without stress, just being, free to have fun and enjoy life, was not the experience his kids were having with him at home. And he was struggling with that. And so we talked through, what does rest look like? How can you choose to rest every day, every week, every month, every year in a rhythm, and build it in intentionally so that you can show up well for your people at work. You can show up well for the most important people that you lead, your kids. So I'm going to go based on someone else's words here who's way wiser, smarter than me. Jesus said these words in Matthew chapter 11, verse 28. "Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest." What do we notice here? In our minds, when we think about rest in our modern Western culture, it's about stopping production, not creating, not doing, right? It's just stopping. And yet we've met, I'm sure you know some people that when they're not working, when they're not doing stuff, it's actually not restful. They feel restless. And so it's this cognitive dissonance where they don't feel rested when they've spent an evening, quote unquote, vegging out on the couch or just chilling, whatever. It's actually more stressful or gives them more restlessness. And the question that I want to help us understand is, when Jesus said the words, "I will give you rest," is rest a noun there or a verb? It ain't a verb. He can't give you a verb. It's actually a noun. So as we wrestle with that mindset shift, that perspective shift on the word rest, where are you receiving your rest from? If it is a gift to be received, a noun to be received, where in your world are you going to receive that rest? I think that it can be given to us through many different ways. Like it can be, if you need to, sit on the couch and not think, turn your brain off and just watch TV or veg out for a little bit, and that is restful for you. Great, embrace it. It's not laziness. It's receiving that which you need to recharge and be ready to work again, right? A pendulum can swing from work to rest, but if we are always pushing the pendulum up into the work side, it's going to crash down, and then that's like what happens in burnout, versus finding a rhythm of work and rest in a way that is healthy, that is sustainable and enduring, right? Some of the most restful things for me are actually taking our family on vacation and going on hikes. Now, it might sound crazy, and even in the middle of this hike that we went on a couple weeks ago, we went to Bulls Island outside of Charleston, South Carolina. It is like basically a deserted island. There's one house on it, and it's a national wildlife refuge. So there's crocodiles and snakes and crabs and all kinds of animals out there. And when you get there, it looks like it looked, probably 200, 300, 400 years ago. Like it's just a deserted island. We decided we were going to hike on the beach. So it didn't really feel like a hike, but we just walked the beach up to the Boneyard Beach, which is all these trees that used to be forest, and then the ocean has slowly eroded, and now it just looks like a boneyard because all these white dead trees that are sitting there. It's beautiful. And in order to get there, we were going to miss the first ferry back to the mainland. And so we had to be there till 4 o'clock. And we thought, what are we going to do? Well, let's just go on a hike throughout the island to see some alligators. There's a place called Alligator Alley, lots of freshwater ponds throughout this island. And so we decided to do that. What we didn't do was tell our kids it was an 8-mile hike, all in, from the boat dock all the way to Boneyard Beach, then through Alligator Alley and back to the boat dock. But what we did do is just started walking. Yes, there were mosquitoes. Yes, it was hot. Yes, it was uncomfortable. Yes, I had to carry 2 of the kids and basically ruck part of that hike. And yet, by doing that, I felt rest. I received rest by doing something very, very active. Most of the time for me, as an extreme extrovert, I receive rest. I receive rejuvenation by being around people, having deep, thoughtful conversations, engaging in hard topics. That's where I actually receive a lot of rest. But enough about me. How do you rest? Let's think about the last time you felt the most rested. What had you been doing right before that? What had you been doing in days prior to that? Maybe you had a good rhythm of work and rest going. Maybe you spent some time alone in the woods. Maybe it was hunting. Maybe it was finishing a big project and you got to take a giant exhale and go, oh, I finished. The problem with taking this word rest and putting into modern day concepts of either being productive or not being productive, the problem is we kind of pigeonhole our rest. Everyone ought to become aware of themselves enough to know, like, what is the most restful activity for me to be doing? One of the guys in my networking group says that he loves to go on 50-mile bike rides. Crazy. We would say that's crazy. That's not restful, but to him, he gets the mental clarity. He gets the rest that he needs so that he can come back into a work week and hammer out a fantastic week of work. So what is it for you? In the equipping section today, I want to ask you, what are the things that you do that are the most restful, where you go or you do and you engage with and you receive rest? Maybe it's a hobby. Maybe it's creating or building something. Maybe it's reading. Maybe it's going for walks, hikes. I don't know what it is. I don't need to know. It's important for you to know so you can start incorporating that into your own life. And here's the other part that I want to equip you with. It's important to teach our kids all about this idea of resting so that they know it isn't something you just have to quote unquote earn. All right. There's a reason that the rabbis taught in the Jewish tradition, they would teach that Sabbath, which is like peace, shalom, rest, started at sunset on Friday night. Actually, their day of rest began with nighttime. And so they begin with rest. The first day of the week is rest. And so instead of grinding it out, working really, really hard and earning rest, because in our culture, we believe we have to earn everything. Oh, you've worked hard for this. You've earned it. we burn out that way. We grind and grind and grind and find our identity in some sort of not so solid place of performance. Instead, can we choose to back down? Can we choose to rest first and then work from that rest? You see, in the Christian tradition, we believe that Jesus gives us an identity first. Just like God spoke to Jesus when he came out of the waters of baptism and he said, "You are my son whom I love, and I'm well pleased with you." That was before Jesus did any miracles, before he did anything. The beginning of his work on earth began with resting in his truest identity. Are you able to rest and say, "I know who I am. I'm going to stay true to that. I'm going to rest in this place"? So this is part of what Jesus offers in the Christian faith, is a identity that's given to you before you do anything. And actually you're asked to live from that place. Maybe it isn't a common thing. Maybe you haven't heard of it before, but the people that I've led and in my own experience, to start from a place of secure identity, a strong foundation to know who you are, and then work out of that place is a much more holistic and healthier way of going about impacting the world. You're not striving for identity. You're not striving to prove yourself to yourself or to your spouse or to your kids or your colleagues. It's a much more settled and peaceful place, saying, no, 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 I know who I am. I know what I'm called to do. And so I don't have to work to prove myself. I actually get to work from a place of rest and be able to have a healthier rhythm. Now, I'll say this: it's hard to do. It takes time, and you grow and you change, your family grows and change, and it's kind of constant tweaking to stay within a healthy rhythm of work and rest. But that's a much more manageable way of living and moving and having your being than feeling like you have to prove yourself or feeling like you have to earn stuff, right? Everything's earned around us, right? You earned that rest. When you retire, you earned that retirement. And so when we're steeped in a culture of work hard and earn, it's very hard for us to actually step back and receive rest in a way that feels entitled, right? It feels like you're being lazy. And so to be able to shift your mindset in this and be able to adopt a new paradigm, a new perspective, is one of the healthiest ways to move away from burnout and move towards rest, move towards becoming a person who is not anxious in always having to produce. Okay. The other part of the equipping section today that I want to help guide you in is teaching this to your kids, because they are also being raised in a culture, kind of just the way that we're steeped in this earning and work hard and hustle and grind. And don't hear me saying hard work isn't valuable. Don't hear me saying that the grind and the hustle isn't necessary at times, but do hear me saying that our identity ought to be somewhere else. And so the more that we can better see, hear, and know our kids, the less they feel they have to strive and earn some sort of identity in the world. In fact, when you start from a place of rest, when you start from a place of confidence and peace in your inner man, you can then help your kids discover who they are without striving and earning being a part of the equation. See, this is a very important soft skill to develop in order to help home become the safest place for our kids. Because when they understand they're not performing for us, they're not trying to earn our love, they're not trying to just, be compliant for the sake of pleasing mom and dad, they begin to understand, like, oh, there's something about me. There's something true about who I am, who I've been made to be, that I don't quite understand yet. And I want to explore that. I want to understand that. I have this goal in our house where we are able to help our kids understand themselves and know themselves well enough, because we know them well enough, that by the time they launch, they're not trying to go out into the world to find themselves, They know who they are, and they are actually coming out of a safe, rested, peaceful home to launch into the world with such confidence, such interdependence, such health that they can go start impacting the world as an adult immediately after they leave the home. Not like, oh, I got to find myself in, my college years and in my 20s, and like maybe if I find a spouse, then that will complete me and I'll be able to find myself even more. No, my goal is to help our kids have such settled peace and rest and safety to discover who they are at home, so that when they exit the home and launch, there is clarity in the direction of their life. They know what kind of careers they can pursue because they know who they are. They know who they want to be when they grow up, not what they want to do necessarily. So this rest piece is a deep dive concept. We talk a lot about it in my course and in the masterclass, where we dive deep on what does it look like to have this paradigm shift happen in your life? What kind of things change in your life and in your relationships when you are coming from a place of serving and giving out of a place of rest, instead of trying to grab and grasp at everything around you to try and be completed by the world around you. It is a gift. This reality, this perspective and paradigm shift is a gift to be received, a noun to be received. One of my favorite challenges is to help parents see where rest can be incorporated. The noun rest can be incorporated into the four family culture builders, into connection, collaboration, service, and adventure. I told you about how an adventure in our family's life, rest was a part of that. Yes, we were all exhausted by the end of that 8+ mile hike in 80 degrees and mosquitoes and venomous snakes and alligators and all of that. But it was such a sense of adventure. When we got done, we felt like, oh, this was good. This was a good day. And we replenished our bodies. We hung out and just chilled the rest of the night, rested our feet, put, lotion on our sunburn and moved through it. But what a great memory that we now have. So it was not just adventure and rest, it was connection, because we spent this time together building that memory. So I hope today you've been challenged. You maybe have a new understanding, or at least been exposed to an understanding of what rest can look like in your life. You maybe don't feel like you have to earn it. Maybe you're asking questions. You're like, I don't know if I agree with that. Great, push back. I would love to hear what you have to say about rest. And so I thank you for tuning in. Thanks for your patience again in my hiatus from podcasting. And we will see you in the next episode.